What's up guys, my name is Gary Blake and we are talking about the 3 beginner level cameras that you can get to get your start in photography and videography. Now, a bit of disclaimer, I know as a photographer and videographer that I get this question all the time. What camera can I get that will get me, better Instagram likes? What camera can I get to take the best family photos or photos of my dog? What camera can I get to get started on YouTube? Well, these are 3 cameras that I highly recommend as a beginner photographer. No one camera is better than the other. While different options and different preferences are available to you in the different camera brands, these are the 3 that I recommend that you can get started with. Now this video is long overdue. We get this question all the time as photographers and videographers. Everybody asks, what type of camera are you using? Do you use this camera over that camera? Do you prefer this brand over that brand? And typically for what you're paying for, you don't necessarily have to be a professional to use them. So I'm going off of the 3 pieces of criteria when it comes to beginner level photography. Number 1, when I get the camera, can I shoot with it? Number 2, when I shoot with it, how hard is it to get an image that I really like? Number 3, how much is this gonna be when I receive the camera? I know I got started on the Nikon D3500. Unfortunately, that camera has been discontinued. But these are 3 cameras that I recommend to get started in photography and videography. So camera number 1 is the Canon T3i. Now, typically the Canon T3i is around $400. So it's really, as far as in the camera world, it's actually on the cheaper side. It usually does come with an 18 to 55 millimeter zoom lens. Now this is typically what we call in the camera world as a kit lens, meaning that when you bought the camera, it came in a kit. With that being said, if you're looking to take pictures of portraits or things like that, this may not be the best lens in your arsenal, but you can typically get a good section of portraits with this lens. Typically most photographers will recommend a prime lens, meaning a fixed focal length, and by no means are zoom lenses fixed focal length. You can tell a different story at 18 millimeters and at 55 millimeters. Typically this camera is around 18 megapixels, so that's a little bit better than most phone cameras. Phone cameras range around anywhere from like 12 to like sometimes even on the higher end 30 megapixels. So some, depending on what cell phone you own, can be either better than your cell phone or a little less than your cell phone. If you're looking in the range of video, this does do about 1080p and comes with its own microphone jack. This is a big help when it comes to vlogging, considering that the in-housing audio on most cameras is either tucked in the back or tucked in the side as like a little peephole. So having an in-camera microphone jack gives you the option to go ahead and plug in an external microphone. Now, typically this camera also comes with the flip out screen, so most vloggers really appreciate this feature just because when you flip out the screen, you can actually see yourself in the frame and you'll be able to flip the screen and then actually take the photo, or flip the screen and take the video, because then you'll actually be able to flip the screen out and then compose your image. It is as an optical viewfinder. Most people use this for like photography. Screen on the back, it is not touch screen, so this is typically something, considering the price tag around $400 is a pretty good bang for your buck. However, most, when we live in the 2019 age where everything's touchscreen, your phone, tablet, things like that, it gets a little bit cumbersome, but overall a very good camera to use when you're starting. It is on the bit of a heavier side, so if you're just used to taking videos on your phone and then you move over to the camera, it is gonna be a little bit heavier, especially with a bigger lens attached to it. Since it is a beginner level camera, these lenses are a little bit on the cheaper side when it comes to camera photography and videography world. So it does take an EF mounted lens. So Canon usually has these for the lower level ASPC sensor, meaning crop sensor. So I will have another video explaining full frame versus crop sensor cameras, but just keep in mind as a beginner level camera, the Canon T3i is a perfect beginner camera, especially for 400 bucks. Now, the next camera I'm about to mention is the Nikon D3500. By no means am I trying to put juxtaposition Canon versus Nikon. These are both very good entry-level cameras for people who are just taking pictures of their families or just taking pictures of their dog or just wanting to get a start in photography and videography. The Nikon D3500 does jump up to a whopping 24.2 megapixels. So this is gonna be a little bit better than the Canon T3i. However, it doesn't come with the flip out screen. So if you are trying to get into, let's say you're trying to get into YouTube, you're trying to get into Instagram, you're trying to, frame your shot according to what is in front of you, or you're trying to be on camera, the Canon T3i might be the better option for you. Now, if you're just trying to shoot photos, then maybe the Nikon D3500 will be a little bit better just because it has the higher megapixels. Now this one is, again, the same. It's around $400. Typically, it also does come with an 18 to 55 kit lens. So this is gonna be a zoom lens again. And typically, these lenses vary from f-stops. Now the f-stop is gonna range of how open your aperture is, meaning how big or how much light is gonna be taking into the lens. So it's gonna be around a 3.5 to 5.6 f-stop range. But typically it won't go any higher than that, or it won't go any lower than that. So it won't go any lower than 3.5 and it won't go any higher than 5.6. So it does limit you a little bit, but it is an excellent starter camera to learn what those things are. How does shutter speed, f-stop, and aperture and ISO work together to achieve those images. And again, all of these cameras can be worked in the proper lighting, can be worked in an excellent way. One thing I want to note about the Sony RX100 is that also too, battery life. Battery life is gonna be the killer in this one. On the Canon T3i and the Nikon D35, you're gonna get a good number of images. I would say anywhere between 600-800 images before the camera's gonna die on you. And that's if you're like steadily shooting. But however, if you're shooting on any of the Sony line, really, most of the batteries typically don't last as long. On the mirrorless side, you're gonna go through a lot of batteries. I would say on the Sony RX100, it's about 300 photos, so typically that's not a whole lot, especially if you're a professional shooter. I know for me, it takes a heavy toll when I have to switch batteries. You could be losing it on a moment every single time. But if you're on a beginner level side, this is totally fine. Most of us, or especially when you're shooting from the very beginning, you're not shooting a whole lot, unless you want to change that, in which case beginning in this little area is going to be perfect for you. But however, on the battery level side, yes, Sony is lacking in that option. So the Canon T3i, you got the Canon T3i, you got the Nikon D3500, and then you got the Sony RX100, depending on the mark. So you have Mark 1 through Mark 6. Typically, it is going to be very different. Each one has its own perks. Each one has its own preference. So if you're looking to get your start in photography, look into those preferences, look in what you're shooting, or look in what you're predominantly wanting to shoot, and just focus in on those things. If you want to be a vlogger, my advice would be the Canon T3i or the Sony RX100. I would honestly probably spring for the Sony RX100 just because it's portable. You can go anywhere with it. So you can be a food photographer, you can be a portrait photographer with that, if you want to take some like Instagram level portraits. If you want to just do like point and shoot, it's quick, easy, it tethers with your phone a lot quicker. Some of the Canon T3i and the Nikon D35. I know the Nikon D35 comes with SnapBridge, which SnapBridge is like Nikon's version to send things to your phone, but Sony tends to be a little bit more intuitive with this. I can probably send photos to my phone within at least I would say 30 seconds, and it'll be quick. Boom, 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 boom. And there's a couple apps you can even download to the camera so that way you can use. The Canon T3i, again, has that flip out screen though, as well as Sony RX100. They have the flip out on top versus the flip out on the side. So it depends on the preferences that you want. But as far as beginner level cameras, all three of these cameras come with a lens upon purchase. All three of these cameras are good to shoot the moment you get them. And on top of that too, all three of these cameras take SD cards and go and have at it. Anyway, hope you found this video very helpful. Go ahead and like it if you did. If you didn't, go ahead and post a comment below on how I can improve, or for future comments about videography and photography that you may have questions on. And then as always, subscribe because we will have more content here. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.